All right, it's 9 o'clock on this Monday, October 20th. That means it's time for the Live Zone Prime Time. I'm producer Chris. This is Tony P.
Let's do it, brother.
Week two, baby. Week two of our
man.
soft launch. Technically, day 6.
Yes.
We started last week. Let me
We
drop
sure
this
did.
countdown in the meantime.
Right. We should have a countdown every day. How many days we've completed?
I know, right? How many days that I've forgotten to drop the countdown as
Oh,
we go
come
live.
on.
But
Listen,
we
it's part of it.
appreciate
It's
you
about
guys.
80.
Exactly. We appreciate you guys joining us. We are live right now streaming on Fox 5 DC's YouTube page. Starting next Monday, we will be live on Fox Local as well. We will also be live on fox5dc.com. Tony P is going to do an entire breakdown of all the different ways you can watch this streaming show.
Wow, I've been placed with that
coming
role
up.
now?
Yeah, you have been as a
I'm
matter of
excited.
fact,
I need to do a graphic for the online, my Instagram.
I
and everything.
absolutely will
like,
demand that
here's
you
a diagram. You should go this way, and then this is how you go. If you Fox Local, yes
It's
or no.
not
Go
super
that way.
complicated, admittedly.
I know.
Really, all you need to do is follow Tony P, and he will make sure that you are in control and how to watch this show.
You know what?
There are a couple things about this show that make it unique, though, and that is that QR code in the bottom corner of the screen that I believe is right below Tony P. You see it right down there. If you scan that, that will bring you into our Zoom room, and you can weigh in on the topics that we are going to talk about over the course of the next 59 minutes and 30 seconds or wherever we are at this point. It's also a place where we can put out the call for people to join us on certain topics. For tonight, for example, our big story is going to be the government shutdown as we hit day 20. Obviously, it's having a major impact on people out there, a lot of people affected, and there's no end in sight. And so if you are one of the people affected, or you are one of the people out there who is offering assistance to people who are impacted, and you want to spread the word, this is your chance to do that. We'll get into that in just a minute here. Tony's got a lot that he's watching as well. We'll get into in a minute. But we do want to start off with a little Fox 5 news alert. This is a story we are following out of Prince George's County tonight. Multiple vehicles and homes hit by gunfire this evening. This is in Prince George's County. You see the video right there. That was our Fox 5 crew out on the scene a little earlier. Fox 5 on the scene, working to learn more details. All we know right now is it happened on the 3200 block of 75th Avenue. That's in Landover. It happened a little after 6 o'clock this evening. Right now, Prince George's County officials say no injuries have been reported. That is the good news. No injuries reported, but investigation is currently underway. So that's what's happening right now out in Prince George's County and Landover. We'll have much more on that coming up on Fox 5 News at 10 and 11 tonight, though.
I'm sending prayers to everybody out there. I mean, when you look at like that type of situation, I lived in downtown DC. I've heard gunshots around me or adjacent to me. It is very, very scary, and sometimes you don't even know if it's actually gunshots or not. And it can also, you can see it, live, and it's very, very scary. And guys, just praying for everybody involved in that, especially cars and property. And then having to just hear that, it can be very, very traumatic. So sending so much love to everybody out there from Georges County tonight.
All right, let's get into our top story tonight. We mentioned it earlier. It is day 20 of the federal government shutdown. So for the 11th time, the Senate has failed to reach a deal. That happened a little bit earlier tonight. The latest vote just a few hours ago, a deal to possibly reopen the government. However, it failed. Once again, the bill fell short of the 60 votes that were needed, something that has happened in every vote since the shutdown began 20 days ago. The final vote, 50-43. Maine Senator Angus King, an independent, and Nevada Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, a Democrat, both voted yes. However, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, a Republican, voted no. The House expected to remain away from Washington this week as Republican leaders continue to put the responsibility to reopen the government on the Senate. But with pressure mounting and military families caught in the middle, the GOP political strategy, Tony, seems to be shifting a little bit. Republicans plan to bring up a bill this week to pay more than 1 million military service members. While active duty troops receive their October paychecks, more than half of the Defense Department's civilian workforce remains furloughed. That includes critical support staff in training, logistics, and procurement. House Speaker Mike Johnson today said he won't call the House back into session until Senate Democrats pass the continuing resolution to reopen the government. So, Tony, no major deals in place right now.
There's nothing. I mean, again, this is so unusual. Again, there's usually some type of chatter going on, especially when we had the issue with the debt ceiling. That was starting to really become a problem. There was always those kind of deals happening on the side. You could see it on X. Different reporters would talk about it. Now there's nothing. There's a couple things that we'll get into, some behind the scenes kind of one-off one-off brainstorming sessions at this point that's happening between a couple of bipartisan group of senators, but it's not really cohesive or coming together. It's just a couple of people discussing things, some more moderate senators, and that's not nearly enough to get it over the finish line. Think about this. That vote tonight was to invoke cloture. What that means is invoking cloture would have allowed, so if Democrats had voted in favor, we've gotten 60 votes, that would have cleared the hurdle, the filibuster hurdle, to pass a budget or a CR, which is 50 plus votes. But now you just only need 60, right? The cloture would have opened up the opportunity for it to be a party line vote. So Democrats wouldn't have to vote on the actual bill. They could just vote on allowing Republicans to pass it on a party line. They blocked that tonight. Back in the early part of the year, in February and March, Chuck Schumer allowed a certain amount of Democrats to vote for the cloture to get the 60 votes. And basically the whole theory was, let Republicans own this. This is their budget, let them own it. That's not even happening now. And it keeps on getting stronger and stronger. And as we watch public opinion shift, especially post No Kings, is that going to have an impact on what the Democratic position is? And there is some polling that's showing a shifting, kind of going back towards Republicans a little bit for the blame as they control both houses of Congress and the White House. You saw a little bit of a blip last week going a little bit towards Democrats for blame, about 2 or 3 points. Now we're seeing it move kind of towards a little bit back towards Republicans. So if this public opinion stays kind of in also like a stalemate, if you will, goes back and forth a little bit, if there isn't a big enough shift, especially with the military pay coming up, we could be in this for beyond 35 days.
Tony, you mentioned No Kings. Obviously, that was a big story over the weekend. Millions of people hitting rallies all across the country, including hundreds of thousands right here in Washington, D.C. We had complete coverage streaming on Fox Local and on Fox 5 DC's YouTube page. Now, the Republicans made an effort to classify what was happening as hate America rallies, but obviously a lot of people wanted their voices heard. Do you think that had any impact whatsoever? And do you think it changed the tune a little bit for people in positions of power?
I think, first of all, on the ground, I was there over the weekend and just kind of to see what the reaction was. It was a lot of, dancing in the street. It was a lot of, people holding signs. There was in D.C. and downtown, you had the speeches. So people were really directed towards that. It's more like a kind of a mix of a block party meets a campaign rally is what my vibes were across Pennsylvania Avenue and towards 3rd and 6th Street and beyond. That was very much my vibe of it. What was interesting is, and I was talking to some folks on the ground, the comments by Speaker Johnson did embolden some people to go out there and actually protest. But as we saw, again, the whole hate America component or paradigm that was trying to be put out there, it really didn't match the overall kind of vibe and the mood. There was a lot of like pro-America signs, a lot of people with American flags out there. So it did have kind of a patriotic blend to it. And then what you also found interesting, what I found really particularly interesting, was in San Diego, in New York, the police departments put out PSA messages on social media and also posts on X saying, hey, no one was arrested this weekend, and we had a fully safe protest. People exercised their First Amendment rights. The police departments were emphasizing that people have that protected right, and they also said, hey, well done. No arrests were made, no violence. So it does really kind of cut into that branding position that the Republicans are trying to put out there when you're not having a ton of protest and you're not a ton of violence and you're having no arrests. So that was a big thing. I do think, though, the one thing I noticed is there aren't really clear policy demands or items from the groups representing No Kings. So I think the biggest thing that my just feeling is that there's going to be more policy rollout from this to keep people engaged, to keep them excited, because people need a place to go. We look at some of the greatest movements, civil rights movement, talk about the abolition movement of years ago in the United States. Like there were concrete policy demands that were a part of the protest. So I think again, there's a big my branding hat is being put on here. Sorry if I'm rambling so much, but
that's
my branding.
Why we pay you here, Tony P.
Thank you. My branding hat is telling me that you can't just be anti-Trump in an opposition. You have to have concrete policies. One of the reasons why I think the president won this past November was because he was anti-Democrats, but he also had a couple policy things that were innovative, that were unique, that kind of spurred people to action, whether it be the no tax on tips, you had the affordability items. Democrats and No Kings need to find those demands, those policy points to get this thing moving, especially in the shutdown, because we're kind of in that malaise. We don't know what's next. we get past the shutdown, what's going to be the next discussion in the Capitol?
Yeah, and of course we do want to hear from federal workers. We also want to hear from people who might have been out at those rallies. I see Ryan and Keegan both joining the Zoom room. I also see Alex just joined. Turn your cameras on. We'll check in with you. We'll try to bring you into this conversation. Earlier today, though, Fox 5's Tom Fitzgerald hit the streets to talk to people about this ongoing shutdown, and you could sense the frustration in people's voices. Take a listen, Tony.
There's plenty of politics, but I've never seen a meaner and nastier than this right now. And it's a shame.
The powers that be that run the country, they're not hurt. They're sailing.
I mean, come on. So the trust issues go back to 2016 and before?
All right, so that was just a quick little sample of what Tom heard out there on the National Mall. Tony, I do want to talk a little bit about the assistance available for federal employees as well,
important.
because tomorrow the Capital Area Food Bank is making a push to support people impacted by the ongoing government shutdown, partnering with its network of nonprofit organizations across the greater Washington region to provide new food distributions for affected federal employees and contractors. Starting tomorrow, you see the list right now on the screen. These additional food distributions will offer boxes of shelf-stable pantry items and fresh produce. Federal employees and contractors will need to show a government work ID to receive food. So you see it right there. Tomorrow, 12 to 2, No Limits Outreach Ministries in Hyattsville, Maryland. That is Tuesday. On Wednesdays, from 10 to 11:30 a.m. So What Else? This is in North Bethesda, right up the road from us here in Maryland. On Fridays, the United Community. This is in Alexandria, Virginia. That's from 11 to 1. From 11 to 1:30, Urban Outreach in Southeast DC as well. Then on Saturdays from 1 to 2:30, the Linda Benn Foundation. That is in Beltsville, Maryland. So that is just some of the resources available. Tony, I know you talked to a federal employee tonight.
I did. So,
about how this is impacting them.
Well, it's funny. I was able to talk to a total of 4. I'm off the record and got kind of a lot of different viewpoints from a decent amount of federal workers and what they're going through. Particularly, a lot of folks, in the aviation space, of course, dealing with, FAA, air traffic control, inspections. I know a few folks in that area as well as defense. And the biggest thing that I heard is that it's very scary out there right now because there's so much uncertainty behind payments, whether they're going to get. Again, we're going to get opening the doors soon. They can actually get their, their prospective payment, but also retroactive payments. There's been a lot of just hoopla and back and forth from the president to the Congress. Are they actually going to honor retroactive payments, or is they going to try to do rescissions on that? A lot of fear about that. But the biggest thing that I learned is that many federal workers, including ones that have to be on the job and not get paid, whether it be TSA or air traffic control or nuclear inspections, they just feel good about helping people and being an important part of keeping the country safe. So yes, even though things are tough right now, they are so grateful to be able to serve their country and help out their fellow citizens. What's really interesting about the aviation space in particular is that, especially with the recent, of course, the events that happened at the beginning of the year with some of the crashes, the Boeing issues, and also there's been some increased flagging from TSA of dangerous items, in checkpoints. So those things have been making it a lot just kind of more anxious for travelers and for federal employees that work with air traffic control, that work with the inspection teams, that work with the TSA teams, because they're all not getting paid, but they're getting a lot more increased issues, whether it be airplane behavior, whether it be passenger behavior, and especially with the systems and things like that. Things are it's a lot to handle this time. In particular, with the systems being slower and a lot of analog systems in the air traffic control space, that can be tough for only 1 or 2 people to handle a job of 5 or 6 people. So, for example, I was talking to some folks, a couple of people in the aviation space, and they were mentioning that with the furloughs and the just people calling in sick, that a lot more just inexperienced people are taking on many more responsibilities at a faster pace. So that leads to faster burnout, a lot more of a quick learning curve among just a lot of stress out there, because people that don't have, I would say, the most amount of depth in certain responsibilities are getting a lot more responsibilities faster. So that can be a lot of burnout, and just trying to have a lot more supervisors on staff is difficult to train these individuals to get those more responsibilities. This is causing a lot of kind of just what we call stretching of the workforce here. So the mental toll is really hitting a wall with a lot of people on the ground. And a big thing that's going on and this is a thing that a lot of federal workers are going through. I heard this consistently, is that they're afraid to speak out about how they're feeling, whether it be direction at the White House or the administration, the Congress, because they fear retribution. And the biggest thing is, don't get the big man angry or the administration angry or the Congress angry, because they could tickle you, meaning like impact your federal job. And there's a lot of fear out there.
Yeah.
And that's very, very sad in this environment where federal employees can't even express their disdain about not being paid and about having uncertain working conditions and increased responsibilities without even asking for it and not getting even paid for it. They're getting on their current pay level and they're not getting paid for it for more responsibilities. It is unbelievably crazy. And for aviation, the longer this goes, you're going to start seeing pilots potentially walking out of work because it's all interconnected. Air traffic control, inspections, pilots may be taking their own lead, even though they're getting paid by the airlines. And what I found interesting too is that the unions, the credit unions that could step in potentially to help financially and provide some of these resources, they're not doing as much as these employees across the board, from aviation to defense to nuclear. They feel that their unions are not responding to their needs properly. And because as you look at the overall financial projection for these folks, they're cutting back on all discretionary spending. Going out, food beyond just what's needed. Some of them need to go to capital food banks and things of that nature to keep, the food flowing. Home repairs are being cut back. Things like child care, all those items are really, really tough, especially for those who are furloughed but still have to work. So it's been a lot for these individuals. And the biggest pain point is that they can't really enjoy their lives, even though some of them are, are on their own, they're off the job, and some that are still working, they can't even enjoy, with all this stress happening. And the biggest thing though, they are really rallying around each other. There are some great connections within these federal organizations between employees and some of their supervisors. They're sticking together, and that's helping them remain positive, even if they're at home or they're still on the job, that brighter days are ahead. And these people are just so strong, and they are really doing the people's work and wanting to get back to the job if they're not doing that. Now, I asked some of them, what is the biggest thing you want to tell Congress or the president about how you're feeling? It's all off the record. But they were saying the biggest thing is that if you want to keep planes in the sky, if you want to keep inspections going on, if you want to make sure our nuclear arsenal is protected, you better get us moving soon. And you better pay us, and you better open this government, because things are going to become more tangible and more direct for everyday people as this thing continues. So they are adamant, please open this government by any means necessary. And the final thing, they're all leaning into their passion, especially those who are on the job right now. They're leaning into their passion right now and their love of service to keep them moving forward. And I'll tell you, the people, their quality of work, no matter how many responsibilities are taken on, their quality of work is still fantastic because of their passion for serving and their love of their craft.
Yeah, and we're taking a live look at Reagan National right now from our camera at the wharf. You obviously spoke about some of these aviation individuals, employees.
Yes.
And earlier today, Politico actually reported that the Trump administration was exploring ways to pay air traffic controllers while the federal government is shut down. And it's part of the Trump administration's effort to control the most visible or politically fraught impacts of the shutdown. Obviously, not everyone is a federal employee, but there are those trickle-down effects. And one of the ones that we have paid attention to, and one of the ones that we have seen, is the impact at airports. People trying to travel, people trying to get home, whether it's air traffic control, whether it's TSA, with long lines, the customs lines. So definitely one of the areas people see a lot of immediate impact, even if they are not directly impacted by being federal employees.
Well, and again, it's a nuisance for people. It becomes a nuisance for the non-federal worker, the average Joe, we'll call it, right? So I'm flying back home for my sister's wedding on Thursday. I have an early flight.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if my flight will be impacted by that. Because again, like, if you notice too, flying out of DCA, and I noticed this from walking through the tidal basin, that they're sending out planes a lot faster early in the morning, a lot shorter duration between the takeoffs, and some of the routes are a little bit different to keep the planes in decent, not limbo, but in decent width apart, right? Again, I'm not an air traffic controller, so I'm not going to use the right language. But like, they're sending planes out a lot faster because they're afraid, it seems, that like as the day gets later and the weather might change, it could be an issue getting those planes out there, especially with the reduced workforce. So there's so much at stake here, and I think what you're seeing with what the president's trying to do with the air traffic controllers, with military, is that it seems that he knows it's a political liability for him. You know, his polling numbers have gone down. He was at 41 in one poll. I think there was a recent, there's a PBS poll that was 37% is his approval rating right now, and he's getting close to mid to high 50s of disapproval. He's starting to see that this is potentially an issue for him. And that's why, again, you can just tell by behavior. This is why he's doing that with air traffic controllers, with military, with inspections, SNAP benefits, those individuals that get the most tangible impact, and that it could be a nuisance for business travelers, especially those that voted for the president, because again, his coalition was pretty wide. You had rural, more blue-collar working class. You also have a lot of the business class community who voted for him that may be looking at this going, all right, buddy, let's get let's get the act together. So there's a lot of things at play, and again, there's no real tangible movement towards a deal at this moment, because don't forget, the House has to make a deal too. Yes, the Senate can make a deal and have a compromise on whether it be the ACA subsidy or some type of plan for that. Then the House has to come back and vote on that.
Yeah, that's right.
So there's a lot of things in motion. We're barely like at step 2 on the deals.
And we've already spent almost 20 minutes on it.
Sorry.
Just a reminder, you can weigh in on
much.
this topic and all topics. You can scan that QR code, or you can jump in the comment section.
Yes.
We'll read those coming up in a little bit.
I'm talking too much, folks. I
Not
apologize.
at all. Not at all. Tony P, in the meantime, though, I know you are following a couple other stories for us tonight. So let's see what else.
We are. We have so much stuff for you. So let me put on my thinking cap here. So tonight, for my Tony P rundown, of course, we'll talk about the shutdown. It's hit day 20. The pain is hitting us pretty quickly. The U.S. Judiciary today began furloughing over 1,200 employees, while the National Nuclear Security Administration cut another 1,400 people today, including staff overseeing the nuclear stockpile. That remains at 400 is the current working number of employees for that. Now, including more state effects, several states, including Pennsylvania, has paused SNAP benefits for millions of families, and thousands of contractors remain unpaid at this moment. On Capitol Hill, of course, senators failed tonight, 11th vote, to pass that short-term funding bill. The biggest bottom line of this is that the standoff is not symbolic anymore, it is operational. Now, with much of Washington in idle, construction crews, though, are not. Heavy machinery rolled into the White House grounds today this morning to start demolishing part of the East Wing, clearing space for a 90,000 square foot private ballroom commissioned by President Donald Trump. The project, valued at roughly $250 million, is said to be privately funded, but preservationists and lawmakers are demanding documentation on all of this, and regulators have yet to confirm formal approval. And critics say the optics of a luxury expansion of the White House during a shutdown could not be worse across the board. In the courts today, a divided Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that President Trump acted within his authority when he moved to federalize Oregon's National Guard to protect federal property in Portland. The ruling overturns a lower court ruling, though the deployment remains on hold pending appeal. Legal experts warn it could set a precedent expanding presidential power over the state guard, even outside of civil unrest. Economically tonight, analysts warn that the shutdown could shave up to 0.3% off fourth quarter growth. Federal contracting delays and frozen infrastructure projects are already hitting small businesses, particularly in Virginia, Maryland, and D.C., the DMV, of course. And Moody's says that if this drags past Halloween, we could see the first negative monthly jobs report in nearly 2 years. At NASA headquarters, a shakeup in the race to return to the moon happened today. Administrator Sean Duffy confirmed that his agency is reopening competition for the Artemis III lunar lander contract after SpaceX missed several milestones. The move invites new bids from companies like Blue Origin and Dynetics in hopes of keeping the United States on track for a 2028 moon landing and reigniting America's role in the new space race. I'm a big fan of the Air and Space Museum. This is very interesting stuff to me, because again, we've been seeing a lot of the SpaceX contracts. They're shifting now potentially. Now let's take a quick break from the world of politics and talk a little pop culture. Actor Callum Turner, the fiancé of pop superstar Dua Lipa, revealed how their romance began on social media when they realized they were reading the same book at a party. He said, "She looked at me and said, 'I just finished the first chapter too.'" Fans online are calling it the most literacy meet cute ever. I'm a big fan of meet cutes on social media. This would be a great story to put on social media. And the couple's viral story has, of course, the world talking and swooning on this day. And now to close out, we have 2 stories to lift your spirits before we go to our next topic. In Yuma, Arizona, a 9-year-old boy is being hailed as a hero today. Zayn Berry offered his skateboard to a group of older kids to stop them from hurting a kitten. The cat, now named Lucky, has been adopted and is thriving. A simple act of kindness, folks, that's capturing hearts nationwide. And finally, in Hartford, Connecticut, a local movie theater chain is turning inclusion into inspiration. More than 75% of its employees are people with disabilities, and now they're taking center stage, running the show, and starring in short films about their journeys with the theater. The program has boosted community pride and has proven that when everyone gets a role, everyone wins. So those are my stories tonight. Producer Chris, a lot to talk about across the country.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've been keeping you busy today. You've not only been talking us everything we need to know about what's happening on the government shutdown, but also the stories that you are following tonight. We're going to switch things up coming up next. We're going to talk more about what's happening down at the White House with that construction project, because we got some new video into Fox 5 tonight. But coming up next, we're going to switch things up because we're about a month into fall, but Mike Thomas has been busy already working on that winter weather outlook. He put a little sneak peek up on that site formerly known as Twitter, or now known as whatever it was. We're going to talk to him all about that coming up.
He'll be teaching me too. I'm excited to learn more about weather.
Yeah, I'm on the roof. It's the roof. Yeah, we're gonna do a weather report for this 9 o'clock.
Welcome back to Live Zone Prime Time on this Tuesday night. Coming up on about 9:30 tonight, and I promised that we were going to switch gears and talk a little weather now as we take a live look out at the National Harbor, the wheel out there. We woke up to some cooler temperatures after last night's rain, but still overall a pretty beautiful day.
Gorgeous.
In the meantime, though, Mike Thomas has been working on his winter weather outlook. You see the post he put on X. It's the time of year when we start thinking about winter. We're working on the winter weather outlook here, which we'll put out in a few weeks, but thought I'd give a preview of what just the bare bones models are suggesting for the winter ahead. Still watching other climate signals for our primary forecast, though. Models are only one piece of the puzzle. Even when a model is suggesting a warm winter, doesn't mean you can't get snow. Mike joins us now live. Mike, where are you joining us now live from?
So the weather, like you said, so beautiful today. I just had to come up to the roof. One of our favorite.
Oh, you're on the you're at the penthouse.
I am on the roof at what we call the Fox 5 penthouse, overlooking
Love
a
it.
beautiful night here in DC.
When I get my badge, hopefully soon, I'm going up to that rooftop every night to close out.
I don't know if they're going to let you have a badge, Tony. That's dangerous territory.
Oh, really?
Well,
Oh, what? Is there rumors going on about me?
It'll save me from having to fetch them every single time.
Wow. So I guess
kid,
there
of
was a
course.
spreading
That's fair,
about
that's
me
fair.
around the Fox
kid.
5 community.
Mike, the winter weather
Oh,
outlook
my
is
goodness.
one of the most anticipated things the Fox 5 weather team does every single year. I know it's not coming out for just a little bit. I know we're only about a month into autumn, but obviously this is what people, look, this region, you know how they do with winter weather. So this is the sort of thing that, this is where you guys earn your keep.
This is where the hype is, right? And that's, you kind of hit the nail on the head, where in terms of seasons here in the DC region, from what and look, I grew up here. I know the local region, and I've worked now at Fox 5 for 11 years. People care about one thing and one thing only: Winter, what's it going to do? And when there's snow in the forecast, how much am I going to get? Fall, spring, summer, yeah, they have the occasional rough weather day, but it's mostly winter on folks' minds. We're at the time of the year. Look, fall is very big on what we call the teleconnections, which are these climate signals that we watch. The one that you probably at home have heard the most is La Nina and El Nino. It's a big one, what we call Enzo. And this year we're setting up with a little bit, at least going to start the season off with a weak La Nina, which is important. I put it all in the article, in articles at fox5dc.com. I go into a lot of detail. But essentially what I've tried to say is I'm starting to look at things, and most of the modeling we get. So, when you're a forecaster like me, and I know the running joke is weather people don't have the hardest job in the world. It's tricky when we're doing something like a climate forecast, because it's part science, but a lot of statistics based on what we're seeing, like the pieces of the puzzle that we're seeing. How does it all come together in the winter? And look, every winter is different. Every winter is going to throw us a surprise or two. Climate models, which is what I'm showing you in the article, and basically just saying, look, I'm still working on our forecast based on all the stuff I see. But here's what, say, just the raw data is suggesting. And just about all of the raw data is suggesting a warmer than normal winter and a below normal snowfall winter. Now, just because the data says that does not mean that's going to happen. A prime example I always use, the winter of 2016, which, if you are weather familiar here in DC, that was the last winter DC had a blizzard. That was supposed to be one of the warmest winters like in recent memory. And if you go back and look at the data, it was an extremely warm winter. We didn't get any snow, but then we got a 2-week period where it was cold, and we happened to get a storm going up in the right direction, and boom, one of the biggest storms in DC history hit us. That's all you need, right? You need one storm and one week or two period where it's colder than normal, and that's all you need in the entire 3 months to get you an above normal winter. And something, if I go back and talk to people about that winter, they're like, oh my God, that was such a bad winter. No, it wasn't. We had one bad storm in January, and the rest of the winter was super warm. But that's all folks remember, of course. So just because what I'm showing you in the article and what I'm walking you through is it looks like a warm winter, that doesn't necessarily mean the potential for bigger snows aren't there. And you're going to get more of that in depth. A preview, like you said, to what we're watching ahead of the winter weather outlook. But we're watching a number of other things. One of the big things in October is what we call the Eurasian snow coverage. How much snow is falling in Siberia, because that can impact Arctic air masses over the pole and whether or not the polar vortex is strong or weak. There is a lot of science behind it. But at the end of the day, essentially all I can do is I'm sort of like a bookie, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to put odds on.
It's a great reference.
And say, yeah, I love my references, right?
Very well done.
Mike, Tony P is literally sitting here biting his tongue. He wants to jump in so bad. He has so many questions. Listen,
Tony, go.
Listen,
I got my notepad here. I'm an old school guy.
One of these nights, I think you're going to have to let him come back into the weather closet with you, and then you're going to have to let him do the whole, the green screen, the 7-day, the whole thing. Yes. This seems like it would be right up his alley.
We're on Fox Local at 10. Do you just want to do all the weather for me? And I'll
don't threaten him with a good time.
Listen, I don't trust myself to do many things. That's one of them. So let me ask you this. So when you look at the model, right? The model. What are the other components that you're looking at? Is it certain trends in temperature over the last 30 days? The Siberian snowfall? Is it other weather events that you're watching from, whether it be the hurricane season impacting this, or there are other kind of more data points that you're looking at that you're taking as a whole?
So there's a number of things that we watch, and there's a lot of them. One of the things that they do teach you is just because, and this is something that goes back to my Penn State days, just because, let's say we have a colder than normal October, that does not guarantee that it's going to be colder all the way through winter. I want to say it was 2011 or 2012. Folks here might remember it snowed right around Halloween. And people were freaking. They were like, this is going to be a terrible winter. That was basically all the snow we got for the entirety of the winter, and the rest of the winter was warm. So we don't exactly look at just the past 30 days. What we look at is what are ocean temperatures doing, and not just in the tropical Pacific, which is your La Nina, El Nino, but we're looking across specifically other regions in the Pacific Ocean, because weather moves west to east. So Pacific temperatures can play a huge role in how the weather pattern's shaping up. And remember, the Pacific Ocean is the largest in the world. So there's a lot of water out there, and it really does influence what the weather pattern is and how it goes, what we call downstream across the United States. We'll actually also watch the typhoon season, because if we get a lot of what we call recurving typhoons, which is typhoons that are heading northward, they can bring a lot of warm air up to the pole, and if you're bringing warm tropical air to the polar region, you're going to disrupt the polar vortex. And once it starts getting disrupted, it's hard for it to organize again. When we say something like a weak polar vortex this winter, most people think logically that that means, okay, there's not going to be a lot of cold.
Right.
It's the opposite. It's the opposite there. A weak polar vortex means it's more wavy, and that means you get more cold down into the United States.
Oh, beautiful.
If it's a strong polar vortex, it's essentially circling the pole and it's stuck up there. So, we'll straighten all
like a
that out in the
hurricane
winter weather
almost.
outlook. But just know that yeah, Tony, there is, man, you and I can spend a whole afternoon. And I'll
This
tell you
is-
all what
I-
we
this
look
is-
at.
It's a podcast,
lot.
you and me.
Mike Thomas, I love you. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. But I've learned that it's unleashing Mike Thomas. This is what they don't let him do unless it's severe weather over on Fox 5. So he has found an outlet to share all of his weather knowledge. And we're the lucky ones for it. But if you have questions for Mike Thomas, you can hit him up on X. That is at Mike Fox.
Yes.
Mike T Fox 5, or of course you can always jump in the Zoom room because he's right there now, or you can leave a comment in the chat.
Mike T and Tony P, a podcast. I
Mike,
could see it.
I'm getting cut out of this show already.
Right?
Good God.
No,
all right.
it on here. Listen.
We're going to take a quick break. When
I'm
we
the
come
crazy
back,
one.
we are talking Commanders. We are talking Jayden Daniels. We are talking Jayden Daniels' mom. And we are talking about how RG3 fits into all of this, Mike
Don't
Thomas.
put that juju on our.
I would
We're not
never.
going
I
to.
would never.
I have all
DC,
positive.
better than that.
Kelsey,
Better than that.
Nicole Nelson is going to join us live coming up
right.
after this. We'll
See
be
you,
right
Mike.
back.
All right. Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Awesome. All right. Sounds great.
Welcome back to the Live Zone Primetime on this Monday night.
I know.
And it's for Commanders fans, not necessarily the best Monday
Dreary
that they've
Monday.
had in a little while. A dreary Monday for sure, and that is because they lost yesterday to their dreaded rival. Stand by, the Dallas Cowboys. That final score, if I drop that lower third, I apologize to everyone, 44-22. However, that was not the only loss during the game because, as you know, if you watched, Commanders quarterback Jayden Daniels had to leave the game with a leg injury in the third quarter. Adam Schefter reporting that he had an MRI on his hamstring, and it is not considered a long-term injury, according to the head coach Dan Quinn. But his status for next Monday night versus Kansas City will not be revealed until later this week, Tony.
I mean, I'll tell you, the game in Dallas was a very important statement game on the road in Jerry World after a very tough loss against Chicago, which they should have won, and a last-minute field goal. It seems that the Dallas game was a response to a demoralizing loss against Chicago. The question is now, A, can you get Jayden Daniels back? Because you need that offensive firepower. Can we get a receiving core back on track? Can we actually have some cohesion at that position? And the biggest thing that I've been noticing has been the defense. The defense from pressure from the line of scrimmage, lackadaisical coverage.
Ooh.
It has been
rough.
Again, the last couple games, we have seen it. I mean, just kind of flaky defense that has not been able to support I would say, an offense that is doing the most it can with all the moving pieces that it's dealing with.
Well, let's bring in our expert tonight. This is sports reporter, analyst, award winner, Nicole Nelson, excuse me. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Kelsey, how you doing?
I'm good, fellas. I wish we were under better circumstances. I know it's sad times in Washington right now, but I'm going to try to bring hopefully a little bit of joy back to football in the area.
Yeah, well, there's one part of this story, though, that I wanted to touch on first, and that is you may have seen the post on X that Jayden Daniels' mom put out last night as well, and it said, "I wish you would stop manifesting RG3 on my son. Words are powerful, and that's all that's talked about." Now, RG3 did respond to this on X as well, saying, "I have always supported Jayden Daniels and want nothing but the best for him. Being QB1 in Washington, D.C. comes with an intense spotlight that I know well. You love your son, and the real fans do too. I want a long, healthy career for him. He will always have my support." Now, Robert Griffin III's mother also weighed in on this. Jacqueline tweeted, "May God continue to bless, heal, and protect Jayden Daniels. The Washington Commanders fans are the best, and they love him. As the mother of RG3, I know how much my son believes in and has supported Jayden, praying for a speedy recovery." Now, I have to admit, I'm one of those people. The first thing that I texted the group chat when I saw that was, oh no, RG3 times 2, because this is another dynamic quarterback who had a dynamic first season, comes in second season, struggles a little, there's more tape on him, but then has gotten those leg injuries because he's running, he's taking hits, he's not necessarily getting the best protection that he might need. So I understand why people went right there, but I also understand what she's saying, don't manifest this for him.
Right. And there's so much here. Well, first let me say I love me some football mamas because they are not going to be quiet. And obviously, Miss Jackson has made her own persona here in Washington. She has her own brand. She's part of game day coverage now, right? People want to know what she's wearing, what she's going to say. Even when Jayden Daniels had that injury, you heard during the broadcast, he had to look at his mom and essentially tell his mom that he's okay. Now, one thing we do in Washington, because we've had so much bad quarterback play, is we don't know how to appreciate the nice things that we get. RG3, taking people back to that 2012, 2014 era of Washington, then Redskins football, right? And RG3 was electric. And it's easy to compare these two guys in the sense that you kind of hit on, Chris, right? You're looking at Heisman winners, number 2 picks, just electric guys that were really able to get this fan base excited, right? Before Jayden, you probably have to go back to the RG3 era when fans were that excited about football in Washington, but she's being a mom. She wants to protect him. Obviously, she knows that narrative. I honestly, I didn't like that she tweeted it, but it's also why I love X, because it's like the first place that people go and they have thoughts, and it gives us good content, right, to talk about as sports journalists. And she sees what fans are saying. A lot of this narrative, I think, is coming from fans. I don't think it's as much from, DC sports media. Obviously, Jayden Daniels isn't having the progressive year that he had last season, with the injuries, going back to the knee injury in week 2 with the Green Bay Packers, now the hamstring injury that we're all monitoring, though we know the MRI said he won't be out all season. But all that to say, I think she's just tired of it and just wants her kid to play the game. 24 years old, she just wants him to play good football and wants the fans to embrace that. She'll never get away from the comparisons. If you're good at anything, you're always going to be compared, right? LeBron's never going to get away from the MJ comparisons or Kobe, right? These things just happen in sports. As sports fans, we love that. But, Ms. Jackson, I think that I love that RGIII responded, which was no surprise. RGIII is no stranger to social media comments, even beef, if you go back to earlier in the year when he got into it with Ryan Clark, and that kind of obviously got out of control. But I thought he really did take the high road. And honestly, I just want to say props to RGIII, because I think RGIII has been so supportive of quarterbacks. Most recently, he's a big supporter of Lamar Jackson, obviously played behind Lamar Jackson, in Baltimore, and is another guy that he always supports through criticism that Lamar Jackson has faced throughout his career, and he's always standing by him. He's also been high praise for Jayden Daniels. I really think RG3 does want the best for the young kid in Washington. We know his career, right, didn't pan out as it should have in Washington because of the injury. And of course, that was controversial if he should have been in that game after suffering that injury. But all in all to say, Ms. Jackson, she's protecting Baby Bear. She's protecting her baby bear. She's done this all season long, but she does have to know when she does this, she makes it more, it's a national storyline now, guys. It's not even just here in DC. I'm talking to folks all over the country now because she decided to put this tweet up. My biggest thing is, let Jayden get healthy. They have a big game, right, coming up against the Kansas City Chiefs, who are on a hot streak, right? Patrick Mahomes with 12 touchdowns in the last 5 games, right? Everyone's talking about the Chiefs are out of it, but they have this guy, Patrick, that can do anything, it seems like. So honestly, I think we just need to focus on getting forward and honestly just wish Jayden the best, folks. It's a hamstring injury. You saw how he fell. It was awkward, something he should be able to come back for. And this guy has heart. Right? Nobody questions like Jayden Daniels' love for the game. But, again, I just think she's being herself. We saw this in college. She's part of the storyline. She's part of him now. But, I think Jayden also will just hopefully he lets his play speak for itself. So all in all to say, folks, calm down. JD5 is a thing in this area for a reason. I do think he's truly special and truly talented. And, of course, we're just wanting him to get back on this football field.
Now, so in terms of the story with Jayden Daniels this year and the comparisons, I feel that they're a little bit misplaced because when you think about, again, without the injury was a lot, I think, more intense. I think with RG3, if I'm wrong.
Of course.
And I think my observation is more of he's playing well. He just has had his injuries that have kind of popped up. Is that the feeling in the clubhouse? Is that the feeling in this market that he's having a decent season, given the injuries, and without the injuries, it might be even a stronger season overall, or is there still a little bit of, can this guy progress later than his first year?
Yeah, Tony, let's say the quiet part out loud. We got spoiled last season, right? 12-5, a game short of New Orleans, right, in the Super Bowl. So again, we expected that same thing to happen instantly. And we know how big Dallas week is, right? If there's any game you have to win, you have to beat the Cowboys. You can't call it a rivalry game when you lose by 20 points, right? That's a stinger. But I think all in all, when you look at, I think the hard part is we were so used to having Jayden healthy, right, on the football field last season. And obviously with him out this season, and, the first thing that I thought about when Jayden went out, the first thing I think about that game is that pick 6 by Marcus Mariota, right? And I think Marcus has played decent football behind Jayden this season, but he's not JD5, right? There's a reason that he's the backup. And all I'm going to say, like you said, he had decent numbers. Of course, this last Cowboys game, the numbers won't look good, especially you talked about it, Tony, when the defense allows 400 yards to the Cowboys and the defense is getting shredded. George Pickens is having a game. CeeDee Lamb, what a comeback game for him. Marshawn Lattimore, probably doesn't want to check his Twitter mentions for the Commanders. So all in all to say, again, I think, because we got nice to the good team, the team that we really all rallied behind last season. And yes, that Bears loss hurt, as you also alluded to, Tony. I think people are just making a bigger deal than they need to. Like you said, it's a hamstring injury, folks. Not too far from here in Washington, the Baltimore Ravens quarterback, Lamar Jackson, also supposed to come back from a hamstring injury. They're waiting to see if he can come back. Not at practice today for the Baltimore Ravens. But again, if anything, I'd be more worried in Baltimore with Lamar and their record than I am right now for the Commanders and Jayden Daniels. I I think, again, fans here just have to settle down. There's still lots of
Right.
football left.
Breathe.
And just know, again, if you trust in Dan Quinn and know this is a next man up type of sport, that's going to be what the Commanders are going to need the other guys to do.
Let me ask you a question about the road ahead, because I believe the Commanders have the Chiefs next, like you mentioned. Then they have, who is it? The Seahawks and the Lions, two teams that are pretty hot right now as well. In terms of the NFC East, how do you see this shaping up and kind of progressing at this point? The Eagles are still sitting on top, but for Philadelphia fans, present company included,
God.
this is it. I know, but this is an 0-6, 4-2 team or whatever they are. The way that they are actually, fans are reacting, and what seems like, kind of the attitude in the locker room as well. Dallas looked good yesterday, but Commanders also looked bad, so that's a hard comparison as well. And, the Giants are showing signs of life, too, every so often with Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo. So how do you see the NFC East shaking up?
Yeah, the NFC East has been one of the interesting divisions in football this year. I think the Giants kind of have been that surprise team. Like I said, Jackson Dart might be one of the hottest things in football, though after that loss to the Broncos, and talk about fourth quarters. And, if you think about the Commanders, especially when they were known as the comeback kids last year in the special fourth quarters. But I think, like the Eagles are the Eagles. They're good. Jalen Hurts, as much criticism as he gets, defending champs. And, as mad as it seems like people try to make the receivers, the Philadelphia Eagles can win football games. I mean, there's so many weapons. I think, their defense, guys step up. So I think that's going to be the hardest one. The Dallas Cowboys, what we saw going into that game, they had one of the hottest offenses in terms of statistics, right? We knew they could score points. So Dallas's offense, I think, is hot and healthy. The biggest thing for them is going to be if they can stay healthy. And so I think for the Commanders, it's really going to be a battle almost for that, bottom spot. And I hate to say that, all in all, to say again, because the Commanders, folks, they got to get healthy. And we knew that game was going to be hard to win. When Deebo Samuel had the Hill injury, obviously we're still trying to get Terry McLaurin back on that football field. And then, the heroic Noah Brown that many of us remember from last season, since so many love that Hail Mary game. So all in all to say, you're counting on a lot of younger guys to step up. And I think that's a lot to ask for, especially because this year in the National Football League, it's been a lot of surprise teams, right, that have come and played good football. So all in all to say, I would say maybe don't bet so much, folks, on rivalry weeks because it's going to be a lot tougher in the NFC East. I've been talking to a lot of fans that are owing some Dallas Cowboys fans some money because I thought that game was going to be much tougher. Why, again, I don't know. We knew about the injuries going into that game, right? We got Sam Cosmi back in that game, but still, the injury report list shouldn't have made anybody that confident. So all in all to say, I think the NFC East is going to be a toss-up, and it's going to be a battle. Commanders, again, they have the ability, but they have to get healthy. That's the biggest thing. I think the Dorrance Armstrong news was some of the biggest news that came out of the Commanders field house today, with him being out for the season. Dorrance Armstrong going into the Cowboys game actually led the team with 5.5 sacks. So, you lose an important piece on that defense, folks, that just allowed 40 points to the Cowboys. So I'll say if the defense doesn't get better, Chris, I'm a little bit worried again about how this team can fare in the NFC as we move forward.
You know what I'm excited about, though? In the meantime, I am psyched for that new season of Hard Knocks, the NFC East edition that's going to debut on HBO Max coming up in December, because I can only imagine the kind of backstage, locker room access they have had for a season that has just been a little all over the place so far.
Oh, totally.
So they picked the perfect season to be following these teams. Kelsey, if people want to follow you for more insight into what's going on, how would they do that?
Yeah, and guys, I promise I'll also have some good Commanders news, all right? I feel like I'm always the bearer of bad news.
No,
when I
I've
come on
learned
here.
so much here.
But I'm at the real Kate Nelson on social media, just KelseyNicoleNelson.com. Love talking football with folks. And again, yeah, let's just keep JD5, folks, and keep the main thing in Washington.
All right, Kelsey Nicole Nelson, thank you so much for spending some time with us
so much,
tonight
fellas.
on the Live Zone Primetime.
Awesome. Bye, guys.
Thank you so
Have a great
much.
one.
It's a pleasure.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little more White House reconstruction. We'll be right back.
The only thing consistent right now has been
All right, welcome back to the Live Zone Primetime on this Monday night. We are closing out the last 4 minutes or so, and you're taking a live look at the White House. And the reason that we're taking that live look at the White House, Tony P., is because there has been a lot of action down there today.
Yeah.
And not the type of action that some people, I think, expected. So this is video that we got from Andrew Layden on X. He sent us. This is the demolition that occurred earlier this afternoon as they begin construction on this new $250 million ballroom at the White House, a ballroom that the president has spoken out about multiple times, spoken very highly about this multiple times, Tony, because this is a big thing that he has wanted to work on.
It is. I mean, it's a $250 million project, and he's had dinners, having the fundraisers there. According to him, it's privately funded by a lot of his campaign donors and others. So, I mean, this is he's a builder. He's a real estate guy. I mean, look at the Oval Office. It's all gold in there. And it looks like he wants to carry on that style into this, and he wants to make the White House very much more like a ballroom at Mar-a-Lago. That's what he's used to. He's used to casinos and all that. So, it's a very... Again, I mean, it's an interesting development. We haven't had real White House construction probably since the 40s or 50s. I'm not 100% accurate on that, but since the Truman balcony. That was kind of the last big noticeable addition, except for the swing set that the Obamas put in 2009, 2010. This is the biggest cosmetic change that we've seen. And this is very, I mean, it looks like an old stadium being demolished.
I was going to say,
there,
I don't think most people, when they heard about this, expected there to be quite so much demolition. And I know we're going to talk about that more coming up on Fox 5 News at 10:11 and the Final Five with Jim Logan.
He mentioned he wouldn't do it. Like originally
he mentioned he wouldn't do it.
He mentioned there wouldn't be any kind of invasive damage or tearing down if this project went through, and that obviously was not true.
Yeah.
The facts have determined that was a lie. To use Maury Povich's quote, like the facts have determined that was not true.
Wow.
And so it's a very interesting shift, and especially during a shutdown, the optics, as we talked about at the top of the hour,
you talked about that a little bit earlier.
The optics are not looking good, especially during government shutdown.
Yeah.
And an economy that's a little bit, fragmented.
Well, we will stay on top of this story for sure.
We
and
sure
see
will,
how
my
this
friend.
construction goes. In the meantime, thank you to everyone who joined us tonight on the Live Zone Primetime. We saw some faces in the Zoom room, including one that's in there right now. But just a reminder, all right, Aaron, thank you so much for putting on your camera here in the last minute, but we are about to sign off.
Please put it on earlier, folks.
But yes, we would
God,
love to
talk
see
to
you.
you.
We'll say hi in the meantime. Thank you so much
Let's
for
get you
logging in.
Thank you.
Join us again tomorrow night, same time,
Yes.
same place,
And we'll talk to you.
same Zoom room ID. to make it easy on everybody.
Yes.
But join the conversation for Tony P. Tony P, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
as
you, my
always.
friend.
And thank
It's
you
a
so much
pleasure,
for
my
your
friend.
knowledge and expertise on all of these
thank
topics.
you. No,
it
I
really makes
appreciate
doing
that.
this show a lot easier. We look forward.
You're incredible. I mean, like, you make it easy for me to talk about this
Pushing all the
stuff. You
buttons
set it
and
up. I
everything
mean,
like
I'll
that.
tell you, like, in golf, you tee it up perfectly, and you're the one doing it, not me. So
Tony posted a great golf video on his social media this weekend as well.
Oh,
it was
God,
from the
no, it
point
wasn't.
of view of what it would be like to be his caddy. And let me just say
Oh,
this. The
God.
man has like what, a -8 handicap?
try 11 or 12.
11 or 12.
And by the
Oh,
way,
I'm
like,
sorry,
I'm
dude,
working
I
on new
just-
concepts.
Just
Working on new
started
concepts with the
playing
golf.
and let me tell you, I need all the
Oh,
help
God.
I can get. Listen, golf is one of the things we could be talking about here. You can log in and you can weigh in. You can give us some tips.
Please.
Anything goes.
Give me some content tips, because that video didn't do entirely well, so they can give me some content tips, folks.
All right,
I want to
we'll
go
be back
viral.
tomorrow night, same time, same place. Fox 5 DC's YouTube page. That's Tony P. I'm producer Chris. Thank you guys so much
Great
for spending your
night.
Monday night with us. Go Mariners, I guess. Go Blue Jays. I'm not sure who you're rooting for, but you can check
I don't
that
know
out
about that one.
over. In the meantime, Fox 5 News at 10 starting now.
Love you guys.
We'll be right back.
Have a great night.